Okay, you were right. Every one of you in the comments of the last video, all of you who watched me lose my mind about a man fighting his own best friend in the street and a woman walking away from her crew without looking back, and then typed very calmly in a way I now understand was deeply sinister, just keep watching. You were right, and I was not ready. The last video ended with me sitting on my floor. I told you Water 7 broke me. I told you I needed a minute. I told you I was fine. I was not fine, and then I pressed play, and this show looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Oh, you thought that was the hard part? Here's what Enies Lobby is. It's the arc where a crew of 6 idiots on a boat decide that one person is worth more than the entire world, and then go and prove it, out loud, in public, in the most insane way you possibly could. And somewhere in the middle, everything stops. The show takes a character I've been suspicious of since the day I met her and explains her whole life in one flashback. And at the end of it, she says 4 words. 4 words. I paused, I stood up, I walked around my apartment, I sat back down and watched it again. So before we start, honestly, I do not think I got through this arc as a normal person. I think something happened to me. Let's go. 30 seconds of housekeeping. Thank you for the comments on the Water 7 video. I read all of them, and not one spoiler. You all knew exactly what was coming, and every single one of you sat on your hands and let it happen. So while I can still speak calmly, subscribe. Every arc gets one of these, and they all live here. That's the whole ask. I won't bring it up again until the end. 60 seconds of recap. Go. Robin's gone. She walked away and told the crew to forget her, because the government threatened to erase everyone on the island if she didn't. Usopp left. Luffy and Usopp fought in the street, and I'm still not over it. And the shipwrights we spent 10 episodes liking were government assassins the whole time. Robin's now on a sea train to a place called Enies Lobby. Everybody says that name the way you'd say the name of a hospital people don't come back from. So the crew steals a train. Not a joke. Second sea train sitting in a shed, no brakes, everyone piles on, Straw Hats, Frankie family, Galley Law, Polly's on the roof, people who were trying to kill each other 4 episodes ago, one train 100 miles an hour through a hurricane. Great image, man. Oh, one more thing happens on that train. Something big. Skipping it on purpose. We're coming back to it. Sanji's already on the other train. Nobody asked him. He just went. My goat. There's a run of fights on that train. I'll be honest, the only one worth stopping for is Sanji versus a man who attacks people using ramen. And even then, what makes it isn't the noodles, it's Sanji's face. Food is the one thing on this planet he will not joke about, and this guy's using it as a weapon. He looks like he's watching a crime. One kick. Complains about the noodles the whole time. Frankie wins his by refusing to lose, which is Frankie's actual superpower, and I didn't like Frankie at first. On record, the man's introduction was stealing the crew's money in a Speedo. Now I'd take a bullet for him. This show does this to me constantly. They crash the train into the island. They drive it off the rails into the front of a world government stronghold, and the government gets about 4 seconds of warning. And the first thing that hit me about this place is that it's a courthouse. No spikes, no evil castle, white stone, and clean lines. It looks like somewhere you'd renew a passport, and that makes it so much worse. Past it are the gates of justice, and once Robin goes through those, she's gone. So that's the clock. Get her before the gates. That's the whole arc. And this show spends 50 episodes making it the hardest thing I've ever watched anybody do. Quick one, because I made a noise out loud at this. Two giants are guarding the gate. Not evil, just employed. And it comes out why. They were told that if they guarded this gate for 100 years, the government would let their captains go. 100 years, standing at a gate, waiting for their friends. And I went, wait, hold on. Because I've met their captains. Little Garden, Dory and Brogy, my guys with the incredible laughs who've been having the world's longest fist fight over a coin flip. They're fine. Nobody has them. They're perfectly happy. The government just lied. Took 2 people, told their friends a story, got a century of free labor. I thought Little Garden was a fun dinosaur island where Usopp learned a lesson that was 150 episodes ago, and it just came back as a gut punch. This show does not forget anything. The crew fights through what feels like the entire staff of the world government. Zoro's cutting through squads, Chopper's rampaging. The Frankie family and Galila hold the line so the Straw Hats can push. People who are objectively much weaker throwing themselves at the problem so the strong ones get through. Everyone knows exactly what they're for. Luffy runs ahead because Luffy has one setting. They hit the plaza. Up on the balcony is Robin. Next to her is Spandam, boss of the assassin squad, and I have never disliked a character this fast. Crocodile I respected, terrifying, calculated, incredible coat. Spandam is a coward with authority. Small, whiny, sweaty, powerful only because a piece of paper says so. And he hits Robin, who is handcuffed in stone that drains her strength, because he can. Because she can't do anything about it. You cannot write a man this annoying by accident. That's a compliment. And then Blueno lands on the roof, the bartender, the one with the doors who already beat Luffy once. And Luffy looks at him and says thank you. And I want to be clear about where my head was because it wasn't hopeful. Blueno is the bartender, the guy who pours drinks. He beat Luffy once already and walked out through a door in the air. So when he lands on that roof, my honest reaction is dread. And Luffy thanks him. And I went, what? Why are you thanking him? What is happening? And then Luffy grabs his own wrist. His arm goes pink. Steam starts pouring off his entire body, off his shoulders, off his back, and the sound design goes weird and the music goes somewhere it has never gone before. And he says,
"You won't be able to stop me now."
What?
And he just disappears. He's gone. He's not on the roof anymore. Blueno can't find him. I can't find him. The camera can't find him. Man. I was out of my seat. I stood straight up. I paced. I said a word I'm not going to say on camera, and then I said it 4 more times. And I've been trying to work out why that one got me, because every show has power-ups. I think it's because I watched him lose first. He got flattened by these people, taken apart by a man who was barely trying. And the show doesn't hand him a magic sword. No mountain, no master, no montage. He goes off on his own and thinks about it, and comes back having invented a new way to use the same body he's had since episode 1. He pumps his own blood faster. That's the technique. He turned his circulatory system into a turbo button. And it clearly hurts. He's not floating around glowing and untouchable. He's steaming and shaking and burning through himself to do it. Blueno beat him 3 days ago. Blueno does not beat him now. And the best shot in the sequence is his face. Not fear exactly, a man doing maths and not liking the answer. And then the show does the cruelest thing it's done yet. Luffy wins. Luffy standing on the roof of the courthouse, steam still coming off him, having just invented an entirely new form in the last 90 seconds. And he looks up at Robin and he basically says, right, let's go, we're leaving. And Robin says no. She tells him to leave. She tells him she made her choice and she made it on purpose. She tells him she doesn't want to be saved. And I'm going to be honest with you about my reaction, because I've been thinking about it since, and I don't come out of it looking great. I was annoyed. I actually said out loud at my television, Robin, come on. Because from where I was sitting, Luffy has done nothing but show up for her. He crossed an ocean, he stole a train, he drove it through a hurricane. He's got a crew behind him who all agreed to this without a single one of them asking a follow-up question. Half of them can't stand up properly, and she's looking down from that balcony telling them to go home. And I want to be clear that I wasn't a little annoyed. I sat there for multiple episodes going, what is she doing? Just say yes. And there's this part of me that had been suspicious of her since the Desert Kingdom. She showed up out of nowhere, joined a crew she'd just been fighting, nobody voted on it, and she'd never once told anybody a single true thing about herself. So a bit of my brain went, okay, there it is. I knew it. She was never really one of them. And the show lets me sit there. It lets me be annoyed with her for a long time. It does not correct me and it does not rush. And then it explains why. I'm going to try to do this properly because this is the part. This is the part I've been dreading writing. Robin's flashback, her home, an island called Ohara. And I want to tell you the first thing I felt, because it wasn't sadness, it was confusion. Because the flashback starts and it's warm, it's sunny, it's a library on a hill, and there are trees and there's a fat old professor being nice to a little girl. And I sat there for a full 10 minutes going, wait, this is nice. Why is this nice? Where's the bad part? Ohara was scholars. That's it. That was the whole island. A giant library and a bunch of nerds who spent their entire lives reading things. And Robin, as a kid, is the youngest one. She's a genius. She's also the loneliest child I have ever seen animated. Her mother left when she was a baby to go do research. Her aunt's family treats her like a bill they didn't ask for. The other kids call her a monster because of her devil fruit. And there's this shot of her standing by herself while they run off. And she does the thing kids do where they pretend they didn't want to play anyway. So this little girl with no friends walks to the library every single day and sits with the old men, because they are the only people on that island who talk to her like she's a person. And then her mother comes back, and Robin knows instantly. She's never seen this woman's face properly in her life, and she just knows, and she gets so excited, and she goes up to her. And her mother looks at her own daughter and says, I don't know you. You've got the wrong person. I'm not your mother. And walks past her. I had to pause it there. And I want to be clear that the mother is doing that to protect her. She's being hunted. If they know Robin's her daughter, Robin dies. She's making the only call she can make. But Robin doesn't know that. Robin is 8. Robin just found out that the one person she's been waiting for her entire life took one look at her and said no. And it turns out the reason any of this is happening is that these scholars were reading the stones, the poneglyphs, the ancient texts that Robin can read, which is the whole reason the government wants her. There's a stretch of history the government has decided nobody on this planet is allowed to know, and O'Hara got close to it. That's the crime. Reading. That's the crime that gets an island erased. Some old men in a library read too carefully. And the head scholar, Professor Clover, gets on a call with the government at the end, and he starts explaining what they found. And he's not shouting, he's not defiant. He's a teacher explaining something the way he's explained things his whole life. And they shoot him mid-sentence. They shoot him so he stops talking. And then they call the Buster Call. Here's what a Buster Call is. The government sends a fleet and they erase an island. Not conquer, not occupy. Erase until there's nothing left to find. And they do it to a library. And in the middle of it, there's Saul, a former Marine who befriended Robin on that beach because she looked like she needed someone, and he teaches her to laugh. That's their whole thing. And Saul is the one who tells her the thing that this entire arc is built on, that somewhere out there in that ocean is a crew, and one day she'll find them, and she should keep living until she does. And then his old friend shows up to stop him, and his old friend is the ice guy, the lanky Marine from Long Ring Long Land who beat all of us on a bicycle and then just let us leave. And he freezes Saul solid. And then he turns around and lets the little girl go. So that's what that was. That's what that whole thing at Long Ring Long Land was. He wasn't being lazy and he wasn't being merciful. He'd done this exact thing before 20 years ago with the same person, and I watched it happen and had no idea what I was looking at. I'm going to be thinking about that man for a while. And Robin gets out, alone, 8 years old, and the government puts a bounty on her. She was 8. She had a bounty at 8 years old as a child. 20 years. 20 years of every single person she ever trusted eventually deciding she wasn't worth the trouble. 20 years of being told by the entire world in writing that she was a monster. Earlier in this video, I said I was frustrated with Robin for saying no. And in Water 7, I was angry at her. I sat there and I thought, how could you do this to them? They're your friend. Because I watched 20 years of proof that leaving first is the only thing that ever kept anyone alive around her. She wasn't betraying them. She was doing the only thing she'd ever seen work. Every single time she let herself belong somewhere, that place got destroyed. Of course she said no. She's not protecting herself. She's protecting them from her. My brain, when Water 7 ended, went straight to, okay, who do we beat up? And this arc goes, yeah, you can't punch this one. Sit down and watch. Okay, I told you I skipped something on the train, and I saved it for right here on purpose. Back on the Rocket Man, a masked man shows up. Bag over his head with a face drawn on it, cape, and he announces himself, with a theme song he apparently commissioned as the Sniper King from the Island of Snipers. He has a long nose. He has Usopp's long nose, Usopp's voice, Usopp's slingshot. He is so obviously Usopp that Zoro says so out loud within about 9 seconds. And here's what got me. Usopp fought Luffy in front of everyone, lost and walked away. He is far too proud to come strolling back going, hey guys, my bad, it would kill him. So he puts on a mask. That's the loophole. Usopp can't come back, but a completely unrelated hero from the Island of Snipers can absolutely show up to help a crew he has no connection to, and everybody just lets him. Luffy plays along, Zoro plays along in the most Zoro way possible, which is by not caring at all. Sanji plays along while clearly finding it hilarious. And Chopper fully believes it. Chopper thinks Soge King is real, and it's the funniest thing in the arc. That's such a kind thing to do for a friend. They give him the dignity of the mask. Nobody makes him apologize. They just let him help. And that's why I saved it, because the very next thing that happens is the thing Soge King was invented for. So Robin's up on that balcony, and Luffy's down below, and Spandam is gloating, and he does the thing that villains do right before they lose. He points at the flag, the world government flag, flying over the courthouse. And he goes, you see that? That's not me. That's not this island. That's every country on this planet. That's the entire world. You want her? You'd have to declare war on all of it. You'd have to fight everyone. He's not bluffing. That's the actual scale. 6 people on a boat versus every government that exists. And Luffy turns around and says, Soge King, shoot the flag. And here's the part I wasn't expecting. Nobody argues. I genuinely thought somebody would. I thought this was the moment where Nami says, hold on, let's think about this, because Nami is the sensible one. Nami is the one who does maths and runs away from things. I thought Zoro might at least raise an eyebrow. Nobody says anything, because they'd all already decided. Somewhere back on that train, without discussing it, every single one of them had independently arrived at the same answer, and it just never came up because it never needed to. And Usopp, the liar, the coward, the guy who cried and shouted and ran away and came back wearing a bag on his head, is the one they hand the war to. and he is terrified. You can hear it in his voice. He's shaking. He understands exactly what this is better than anybody standing there because he's the one who's scared of everything, and being scared of things means you actually know what they are. And he does it anyway. He shoots the flag and it burns. Man, I've watched a lot of television. I've never seen a group of people declare war on a planet before. And what makes it work isn't the explosion, it's the framing. It's the crew standing there in a line watching it burn. Nobody's celebrating. Nobody's got a cool one-liner. It's six people quietly agreeing that the world's opinion is no longer relevant to them and then getting on with it. And I want you to think about who's watching this from up on that balcony. Robin has spent 20 years watching people fold. Every single person who ever said they'd protect her did the maths at some point, worked out what she was going to cost them, and quietly stepped back. That's the pattern of her entire life. She's not cynical, she's just been paying attention. And she is standing there in handcuffs watching six people look at the price and set it on fire. That's the best single decision in this arc, by the way, not the flag. The fact that Oda makes her watch it. She doesn't get told about it later, she sees it happen. And then Luffy yells up at her. And he doesn't say, "We're rescuing you." He doesn't say, "Come back." He doesn't tell her anything. He asks her a question. He asks her to say it. And there's this pause where she can't. You can see her physically unable to do it because saying it out loud means admitting she's wanted something this whole time. And if she admits that and it doesn't work, that's it. There's nothing after that. And then Robin breaks. And 20 years of "I'm fine, leave me alone, I don't need anybody" just goes all at once. And she's crying and she's screaming and she says,
I want to live! Take me with you! Take me away from here!
yeah. That's the thing I mentioned at the start. That's the four words. I paused it. I didn't mean to, my hand just did it. And then I stood up and I didn't have anywhere to go. So I walked around my apartment in a circle like a Roomba for about a minute. And then I sat back down and rewound it and watched it again. And then I watched it a third time. And what got me isn't that she asks for help, it's what she asks for. She never says, "Save me," not once. She doesn't ask them to fight. She doesn't ask them to win. She doesn't ask them to get her out of the handcuffs. She asks for permission to live. Because that was never the question. The question was never whether the crew would come. She'd already seen them do impossible things for each other. She knew they'd come. The question was whether she was allowed to want it, whether she'd earned the right to take up space in somebody's life without it costing them everything. She has been apologizing for existing since she was 8 years old, since a woman walked past her and said, "Wrong person," since the whole world put a number on her head and told her in writing that she was a monster. And that scream is the first time in 20 years she says out loud in front of everybody that she wants to be here. And nobody on that crew reacts like it's a big deal. That's the part that finished me off. Nobody goes, "Ow." Nobody makes a speech. They just start moving. Because to them, she never had to ask in the first place. That's the whole show, man. That's the whole show. Cry counter. I'm not doing a number for this one. The number is bad. We'll settle up at the end. Okay, I'm fine. Give me a second. So they've just declared war on the entire world, which means the entire world is now a problem, which means we're about to get 15 episodes of people getting punched. And honestly, I needed it. Let's go. Robin's cuffs are the problem. They're sea stone, which means she can't use her powers and she's basically helpless. And the keys are held by the assassin squad, one each, and nobody knows which one actually works. That's such an evil setup. It means it's not enough to beat one of them. You have to beat all of them. Every single Straw Hat has to win their fight or Robin stays in chains. So they split up. And this is where the arc turns into a tournament, and I have thoughts on all of it. Kumadori's the kabuki guy with the enormous hair who talks like he's performing for a theater that isn't there. Chopper goes into this losing, badly, and his whole gimmick is the rumble ball. 3 minutes of extra forms, and he is never supposed to take more than one. So he takes more than one. Monster Point, and it's genuinely scary. This isn't a cool power-up, it's a horror scene. Our sweet little reindeer becomes a giant thing that doesn't recognize anybody and starts destroying everything, including his own friends. He wins technically, but he's not in there. They have to shoot him to bring him back. And I love that the show made this scary instead of awesome. Chopper wanted to be strong enough to matter. He got it, and it took him away from himself. That's not a power-up. That's a warning. Khalifa's the secretary, glasses, sharp, says that's sexual harassment as a defense mechanism against literally everything. She has the soap fruit, which sounds like a joke until she washes a person's strength off them. She soaps you and your muscles stop working. And she soaps Sanji, who refuses to fight back because he will not hit a woman. He gets dismantled and he takes it. He'd rather lose than break his own rule. So Nami takes it. And Nami's the one who gets carried. That's her whole thing. She runs from fights, she hides behind Zoro, and I've said before I thought her weapon was a bit of a joke. She wins with weather, Mirage clones a stacked thundercloud, and she electrocutes a top tier government assassin on her own, with a stick Usopp built for her before he left. Which is a lovely detail. He wasn't even speaking to them, and he still upgraded her weapon on the way out. Frankie also fights a man with a zipper for a mouth who zips it shut, which is the entire design, and I respect it enormously. Frankie wins by running on cola like a car. That's key number 3. Quick break from the tower, because the show takes one too. While all that's happening, Spandam is dragging Robin across a bridge toward the gates. That's the actual race. Everything in the tower is the crew trying to catch a man who's walking. And Spandam has a sword, and the sword is an elephant. His sword is an elephant. It's a devil fruit sword. It's called Funk Freed, and it can just become a full-size elephant whenever it wants. And I love it because it's an objectively incredible weapon, and it makes him look worse. He has an elephant sword, and he's still losing to a woman in handcuffs. Then Frankie catches up, and the other thing comes out. Because underneath all of it, the government wanted one thing, the blueprints for the ancient weapon. The thing an entire city got torn apart over. Frankie's had them the whole time. He pulls them out. Spandam does the yes, yes, hand him over thing, hands out, sweating, and Frankie burns them in front of him and watches his face. And here's the bit that made me sit up. His old man died over these plans. This piece of paper cost him his father, and it only describes one thing, which is a weapon. So he burns it and then tells Spandam he memorized it first. So if the world ever actually needs a ship that can fight one, the world can come find him. Absolute lunatic. He destroyed the most valuable document on the planet as a bit and took it hostage inside his own head. Right, back to the tower. The next two are the best fights in the arc. Okay, Kaku. Kaku was the friendly, square-nosed shipwright who inspected the Marian Water 7. Nice guy. Broke the bad news gently. He's also a government assassin, and in this fight he eats a devil fruit on screen and becomes a giraffe, and he's devastated about it. Standing there with a giraffe neck going, this is humiliating. And then he attacks, and it turns out being a giraffe is terrifying because his neck is a whip with a head on it. One of my favorite fights in the show, and here's why. It's a serious high-level sword fight with real technique and real stakes between a man with 3 swords and a giraffe, and it never winks at you once. The show fully commits. And then Zoro pulls out the thing. 9 swords. 9. It's a technique. It's an illusion. I don't care. He stands there with 3 heads and 6 arms. The screen goes dark and he cuts a giraffe in half. That's aura farming. Highest level ever achieved in this show. He's been farming since Whiskey Peak, and this is the harvest. Zoro's my goat, and it isn't close, except for the other 4 people who are also my goat. Jobber's the wolf guy, and his entire strategy is making Sanji feel bad. Tells him a sob story so he'll hesitate. He knows Sanji's soft. And Sanji does hesitate, briefly. Then he works it out, gets angry, and does something new. Diable Jam, his leg is on fire, and he is kicking a wolfman with it. Screen goes red, music kicks in, and my only note is that Sanji has spent 200 episodes having every cool moment undercut by a joke, and this time nobody undercuts it. He just gets to be cool. These 2 fights happening back to back is criminal, by the way. That's showing off. And here's what I noticed about all of these fights, and it's the same thing I noticed in the Desert Kingdom arc, but turned all the way up. Nobody is fighting a random opponent. Chopper fights the one that makes him lose control of himself. Nami fights the one who takes your strength away, which is the thing she's been afraid of her whole life. Sanji fights the one who exploits his own code. Zoro fights the one who used to be a shipwright, the one who was also lying to them the whole time. They're not fights, they're arguments, and everyone wins their argument. Robin finally gets him. Cuffs are off. Spandam runs. Of course he runs. He's been running the whole arc, and she catches him. 100 arms out of his own body, she folds him backwards, slowly. I did feel bad for about a quarter of a second. Then I remembered the man who shot Professor Clover mid-sentence at O'Hara, the one who ended that island, was Spandam's father. It's a family business. They do this generationally. I felt fantastic. Get him. Then Spandam, on his way out, panicking, slaps a button. He calls a buster call on himself on the island he's standing on, by accident. 5 vice admirals, 10 battleships ordered to destroy a government stronghold with all their own people still on it. They do it. That's the part. No hesitation. Nobody says, sir, our men are down there. They start shelling their own island because the chance that the last person from O'Hara gets away is worth more than everyone standing on it. Robin has to watch it happen again. Same ships, same order, same sound. She finally says she wants to live, and the universe immediately goes, are you sure? Right, pigeon guy. Rob Lucci, the quiet shipwright who never said a word and let the bird on his shoulder do the talking. I thought he was a gimmick. He's the most dangerous person we've met. And he's a leopard. Obviously, he's a leopard. This fight is long, and if the arc drags anywhere it drags here, there's a stretch where I did check how many episodes were left, but I'm not mad about it because the fight isn't about whether Luffy is strong enough. He isn't, demonstrably. Gear second isn't enough. Lucci is faster and better, and he says so, and he's right. So Luffy pulls out gear third, and he bites his thumb and blows air into his own skeleton. He inflates his bones. That's the technique. His arm becomes the size of a building, and he punches a man through a wall, through another wall, through the island, and then he shrinks. Because the cost of Gear Third is that afterwards he turns into a tiny, useless chibi version of himself for several minutes, in the middle of the most important fight of his life. And the show plays it as a joke, and it is a joke, and it also nearly gets him killed. This show will not let anything be purely cool. Everything cool has a stupid price. And then Luffy's done. He's finished, he's on the floor, and he's not getting up. And Usopp watches this. Usopp, who is hiding, who left the crew, who is still wearing the bag on his head so he doesn't have to admit who he is. Usopp, who can't do anything. He's the weakest one there, and he knows it, and it's the thing that made him leave in the first place. And he realizes what he can do. And he yells at him. He starts screaming at Luffy from wherever he's hiding. As Soge King, still in the voice, still doing the bit. Telling him to get up, telling him he's the man who's going to be king of the pirates, telling him this isn't allowed to be where it ends. And Luffy hears his friend's voice and gets up. That's the payoff, man. That's the whole Usopp arc paid off in one scene. He can't beat anybody. That was never what he was for. He's the one who says the thing. He's been the one who says the thing since Syrup Village. And he still doesn't take the mask off. And then Luffy goes absolutely nuclear. And this is not a clean, heroic finish. He's wrecked. His arms don't work properly. He's been hit through 6 floors of a building and he's running on nothing. And he stands up and does the steam thing one more time. And he starts punching Jet Gatling. And it's not a big cinematic single blow. It's not a beam. It's not a special move. It's a man hitting another man as many times as it is physically possible to hit someone. It's the same attack he's been throwing since Syrup Village, back when he was clearing out a beach full of cat pirates, just at a speed that turns the whole screen into noise. And the sound of it is what got me. It's this rubber band snapping over and over and over, and the music is going insane underneath it, and the floor is coming apart, and it just does not stop. Lucci, who has not shown one single flicker of anything the entire time we've known him, who sat in that workshop in Water 7 saying nothing while his pigeon did the talking, who explained to Luffy, calmly, like a maths teacher, exactly why he was going to lose. Lucci finally looks scared, and he goes down. And Luffy collapses on top of him. Face down, done. Nothing left in the tank at all. And then, I didn't clock this until afterwards, Luffy doesn't kill him. He just doesn't. And there's no speech about mercy. Nobody mentions it. It doesn't come up. I think it's because winning was never the point. He came to get his friend, and the second that's done, Lucci stops existing as far as he's concerned. The government sinks an island full of its own people to stop one woman talking. Luffy beats a man half to death for that same woman and leaves him breathing. You're not supposed to miss which one of those is the pirate. And what actually happened in my apartment is that I screamed out loud, alone, at 2 in the morning, loud enough that I owe my neighbors an apology I have not made. And then I sat there with the episode still running and my hands on my head and realized I was shaking a bit. Because it isn't just that he won, it's who he was doing it for. Robin isn't in that room. She can't see any of this. There is no version of this fight where she watches it and is impressed. He's face down on the floor of a collapsing building, beating a man half to death for somebody who spent 20 years assuming nobody would. Pause counter 7, that one was to catch my breath. Islands coming apart, battleships everywhere, everyone's beaten to pieces, no way off. Half the crew ends up underwater and drowning, and they get saved because Kokoro, the drunk old woman from the train station who's been in the background for 20 episodes, turns out to be a mermaid. Just been a mermaid this whole time. Nobody mentioned it. She never brought it up. Perfect placement, by the way, right in the middle of the most stressful moment in the arc. The giants haul everybody out, the two who switched sides the second they learned the truth. But Luffy's still in there. The crew won't leave without him. So they're sitting in a broken boat, surrounded, island coming down on top of them, no plan left. And then somebody calls out to them. The Going Merry sails out of the smoke. Okay, I'm going to be really honest with you about this one because I've been putting off writing this section for about 4 days. I did not handle this well because we already said goodbye to that ship. That happened. That's done. In Water 7, we got told, by an actual expert gently, that the Mary was finished, the keel was cracked. It could not be repaired. It could not sail again. That wasn't a maybe. That wasn't a we'll find a way. That was a professional looking at a friend and telling them the truth. That verdict is what broke this crew apart. That's the thing Luffy and Usopp fought over. That's why Usopp left. An entire arc of pain came out of one man saying she can't sail. And she sails. She comes around through the smoke while the island is being shelled, with the crew sitting in a broken boat with no plan and nowhere to go, and she comes to get them. Nobody sailed her there. Nobody could have. There is nobody at the wheel. She came. And there is an explanation. Somebody put her in the water instead of scrapping her, and somebody found her and patched her up as best they could. The show gives you the mechanics. You can take the mechanics if you want them. But everybody on screen knows what actually happened, and so do I. This ship heard that her crew was in trouble and decided she wasn't going to just sit there and be broken. And the crew loses it. That's the bit that got me, not the entrance, the reaction. Because these are people who have just fought a war. Zoro's been cut open, Sanji can barely stand. They've all just done the most impossible thing they've ever done, and none of it cracked them. And they see a boat and they all start crying at the same time. Nami's crying, Zoro is crying, Chopper's screaming, Luffy is crying openly the way a kid cries, and he keeps saying her name. And I was gone immediately. No build up, no warning. I just went from being hyped out of my mind to fully crying within about 15 seconds. And I had a moment of genuinely thinking, what is wrong with me? It's a boat. I am a grown man crying at a boat. And she carries them out. She carries all of them out through a fleet of battleships off an island that's being erased. And it's the last thing she's able to do. And then the crew has to say goodbye to their ship. She's finished. Everything she had left went into that rescue. She's coming apart, she's barely floating, and there is no version of this where she keeps going, and everyone standing on the deck knows it. And they burn her, because that's what you do. That's the funeral. And I want to talk about how quiet this scene is, because I think that's why it works. There's no big swelling orchestra telling you to feel something. It's night, and there's water, and there's a fire, and there's a group of people standing on a beach not saying very much. And then the Mary talks. And she apologizes.
I'm sorry. I wanted to carry everyone just a little bit further. I wish our adventures would never end.
Mary! If anyone's sorry, it's us!
I know you always treated me with love. Thank you.
She says she's sorry she couldn't carry them further. She says she wanted to take them further. She says she wishes she could have done more. And then she thanks them. She thanks them. She says she was happy. She says they took good care of her. I want you to understand something. I made fun of that ship. In my first video, I called it a goofy little ram-faced dinghy. That's on camera. That exists. And I sat on my floor with my hands over my face while a wooden boat apologized to a group of people for not being good enough, and every single one of them stood in a line in the firelight and told her that she was. And the thing I keep coming back to, the thing I have not been able to shake, she isn't scared. She's not apologizing for dying. She never once mentions that part. She's apologizing for not being able to do her job, for letting them down. That's the only thing on her mind at the end of her life. Did I do enough for them? That's the same thing Usopp was worried about. That's the same thing Robin was worried about. That is the exact same fear 3 times in one arc. And Luffy, who cannot lie, who has never once in 200 and some episodes said a comforting, untrue thing to make someone feel better, tells her she carried them further than anyone else could have. And she goes, and then the crew just stands there, and the show holds on it. It doesn't cut away, and it doesn't move on, and it doesn't put a joke in to let you off the hook. It just sits there in the dark with them and makes you stay. Cry counter, final, I stopped counting. I put the phone down. It was 5, and then it stopped being funny. So here's where I landed. This arc isn't about a rescue. The rescue is the plot. It's not the point. It's about the difference between being wanted and being told you're wanted. Robin already knew they'd come. That was never the problem. The problem was she'd never been given permission to want it, because every time she let herself belong somewhere, that place burned down, and she learned what everybody learns. Leave first. It hurts less. So they don't just rescue her. They make it impossible to misunderstand. They burn the flag. They make her say it out loud. They declare war on the planet in front of witnesses, so there's no version of this where she gets to think they didn't mean it. Same with Usopp. He can't come back, so they build him a door. A stupid door with a bag and a cape and a theme song, and let him walk through it without ever making him admit it. Same with the Mary, who spends her last minutes apologizing and gets told no, you did enough. 3 characters convinced they're a burden. 1 crew telling all 3 of them to shut up. And on pacing, since I always bring it up, it earns its length because everything in the middle is paying off something from 200 episodes ago. Little Garden pays off, Syrup Village pays off, the Desert Kingdom pays off. Zoro learning to cut steel back there is the only reason he survives a giraffe. That's not filler. That's interest. Now, theories. Screenshot these and laugh at me in a year. 1. The crew needs a shipwright and a ship, and I think they just found the guy. It's Frankie. He burned his life's work. His family are all here. He has nowhere left to go. It's going to be the man in the Speedo. I've made my peace with it. 2. The government erased a stretch of history and killed an island of librarians to keep it erased, and Robin is the only person alive who can read the stones. I'm not going to guess what's on them. But they're more afraid of that than they are of pirates, and right now that's the most interesting thing in this show. 3. Ace did not appear in this arc, not once. Coward behavior. He handed Luffy a blank piece of paper and vanished into the sea like a man dodging a phone call. Still my pick for Luffy's final rival, and I will not be moved. Look, I said after the desert arc that the show had peaked. I said it again after Water 7. I'm done predicting the ceiling. Every time I decide this show has shown me its best, it turns out I've been standing in the shallow end. I picked this up on a whim as a guy who'd never watched anime, fully expecting to bail after a week, and I'm sitting here now having had a genuine emotional experience about a boat. Thank you, Oda, you sick, twisted man. Final tally, paused 7 times, cried more than 5, stopped counting for my own dignity, and yelled loud enough at one point that I owe someone an apology. Thank you for the comments, and thank you to everyone following this journey with me. So if you want more, subscribe. Every arc gets one of these, and they all live here. And leave a comment. Tell me what got you the first time you watched this arc. I want to know if it was the same thing that got me. I'll be back. I'm already sailing. I don't know where. That's sort of the point. See you in the next one.